Have you ever had this happen to you? There's a show that comes up on TV or pops up into your recommended, and you decide to give it a watch out of curiosity, and maybe to kill some free time. At first, you don't really expect much from it, but then there's just something special about it that grabs your attention. Maybe it's the characters, or the stories in each episode, or maybe the setting the show takes place in. Whatever it is, it makes you want to watch more of it. So you watch another episode, and then another, and then you don't notice how you've already watched the whole thing by now. And now you're wondering, how did that happen? Most people watching this video would say it happened to them with shows like, say, Gravity Falls or maybe DuckTales. But what if I told you there was another show that has that something special about it? What show could I possibly be talking about? Well, since you've clicked on this video, that means you must be interested in what I'm going to talk about. And that would be... So let's talk about this fella, okay?
Okay.
Marsupilami, or Marsupilami if you speak Baguette, is a show that was first broadcast in the year 2000. On that year, we were promised a total collapse of the internet. Every computer is spontaneously exploding.
It's like real life, man. What the?
And planes falling out of the sky everywhere. But we got this guy instead. The show aired in Europe, primarily in France and Belgium, which is where the character himself was created by none other than Andre Franken. If that name rings any bells for you Europeans out there, he's the guy who worked on the comic series titled Spiro and Fantasio, where two friends go on adventures and solve mysteries together. That's where Marsupilami, I'll just call him Marsu from now on, made his first appearance as a side character. As for Marsu, he's like a combination of a cheetah, a monkey, and a dog, and I gotta say, I just love everything about his design. It's so cute and unique and I can't get enough of it. But what makes his design stand out from the rest is his really long tail that he uses for pretty much anything. From fighting
3, 2, 1, go! Game!
to going around the jungle to interacting with various things. It's a cool design. In the comics, he manages to be an endearing character without saying a single word, and his unique design only helped him stand out further. After some time, Marsupilami became the main character of his own comic series, which this show is based on. This show is mostly about Marsu being up to some shenanigans while interacting with human objects and environments, just like in the comics. The animation is nice, the slapstick humor is pretty funny, and Marsu and his family are just cute and endearing to watch. It's a fun and harmless show that's great to put in the background to have a chuckle while being busy doing something else. There's not much more I can say about it though, because believe it or not, this is not the show that I want to talk about. But the reason why it's so important to mention is that it paved the way for something really, truly special later on. So let's have a little bit of context here. The year is 2002, and it's been 50 years since his original debut in 1952. France issued limited time stamps for its mailing services to celebrate his anniversary, and Marathon Animation, the studio behind the original series, wanted to do something special. They wanted to tell a story and introduce us to his world in an exciting and new way. So a year later, in 2003, they came out with this.
You're the king!
I still get shivers from this. My Friend Marsupilami came out in 2003 and it's absolutely incredible. It was made as a direct continuation of the Marsupilami show I mentioned earlier, but it's bigger, faster, and stronger too, and they went all out with it. The intro song you're hearing right now was written and performed by Lou Bega of all people, the same guy who made bangers like this one you've probably heard a trillion times by now. So when he takes someone with his talent and make him do the intro to your animated series, you know it's gonna turn out amazing. It shows that they really wanted to do Marsu justice with this one, and that's just the intro sequence. There's a whole show that comes with it. There are so many things to go over in this show, so let's hooba hop straight into the Colombian jungle as I explain to you what makes My Friend Marsupilami so great. The show begins in a way that's simple and concise. We see Marsu doing the things he did in the first series, just messing around in the jungle and having a good time. This is where we see the quality of the animation shine, and it's excellent. I love how this show isn't afraid to experiment with the perspectives and the different ways the character interacts with the environment. It adds personality and emphasizes every action he makes. The sense of motion it conveys is just pure excitement that makes my brain release the fun chemicals when seeing it. But what soon catches his attention is the racket of construction work nearby. He notices that the long-abandoned mansion by the river is being completely renovated by a family of humans that's just moved in. He gets curious about it and approaches the house to see what his new neighbors are up to. This is where we are introduced to our main cast. We have David, who's the father of the family, and also a clumsy and easily scared technician. Amanda, the mother, who's a biologist. She's very athletic and has sass for days.
Maybe it's just deaf. Or maybe it likes you. You're kind of cute in overalls, you know. You know, David, a jaguar would never eat jam, though it'd probably eat you.
Yeah, it was funny when the piranhas ate off all his clothes.
Those fish were pretty scary, though.
Yes, he was stark naked when we pulled him out.
We also see Zoe, who's a bebe, so there's that. And finally, there's Leo, the main character of the show. He looks sad and closed off, and Marsu notices that. So he goes back to his nest to tell his, partner? Wife? I don't know. All about it. This is where we also see their babies, so that makes what? 8 characters already? And we have barely started, jeez. The next day, he comes back to the house to try and cheer up the kid and maybe even befriend him. However, he gets distracted by strawberry jam. I mean, who wouldn't? And that's what starts his first actual encounter with Leo, as awkward as it is. But before they can even process what happened, Leo's dad sees them and starts panicking, thinking Marsu attacked the kid because of the strawberry jam on his face. That makes Marsu run away and leave both Leo and Amanda to calm him down. Leo tries to argue that Marsu isn't dangerous and his dad is just overreacting. We are then shown how Marsu overhears the family talking about that encounter with him. It starts with David's reaction, being clearly negative as he says he doesn't want to see Marsu again, thinking he might put his kid in danger. But we then hear Amanda reassure him that she would love to see a Marsupilami like him again, and agrees with Leo that he's not a threat. This is the first time ever that Marsu has seen someone talk about him in a positive light. The perspective then shifts to Leo, and can I just talk about how awesome this detail is? We've seen things from Marsu's point of view this whole time, and the perspective only changes to Leo after they first meet. It's such a subtle and great detail that really says how important their relationship is to the story. It's also a great way to introduce us to Leo in a more in-depth way. We see him trying to fish while complaining about his situation. He clearly feels uncomfortable and lonely in his new environment. Even something like a tiny baby piranha gives him a lot of trouble. But he's quickly interrupted when Marsu finally shows up again, handling piranhas like they're nothing and playing with them. His friendly attitude towards Leo is enough to convince him that Marsu is not a threat and is actually a fun creature to hang out with. They try to approach each other, but then Leo's dad calls them back to the house to talk to him. And because of that, Leo tells Marsu to wait for him outside, but he doesn't listen and goes into the house with him anyway. I just love this part of the episode because we can clearly see that both Leo and Marsu are on the same page. They both don't want David to see Marsu again to avoid trouble, but they clearly don't know each other at all and haven't established their bond yet, so Marsu has no reason to cooperate with him, which leads to some hilariously awkward moments.
You wanna come with us?
No! Hey, come here! Come here! Stop it! Let go! Get out of there! I told you to hide outside!
Leo, did I bring you back anything?
Yes, we need more cakes.
Okay.
Finally, Leo's family leaves him alone and goes to Chiquito, the town nearby. That's where we are also introduced to the family friend Didi, making for 9 characters total so far. And it's only been what, 10 minutes? So Leo does what any kid would do in his place and goes to hang out with Marsu. That's when he finds out that Marsu took his favorite toy and starts chasing him to get it back. And it is in this exact moment that we see the start of Leo's character arc. He doesn't hesitate to climb up a tall tree to get to Marsu, and he takes on the challenges presented to him, like hopping over a big gap using a vine. You can see how he's clearly uncomfortable and afraid of heights, but his determination pushes him to overcome that. And after the fact, Leo kind of doesn't mind Marsu having the toy anymore. He's making a friend and starts to trust him, and that's what matters to him. Now we see them both just hanging out and enjoying their time together. And it's such a natural way to build an initial bond between the two characters. We even see a change in Leo's attitude towards Columbia, the jungle they're in. At the start of the episode, he clearly hates being in the jungle, but now he's looking at his surroundings with enthusiasm and excitement when Marsu finally shows him how beautiful and fun the Colombian jungle really is. Then we see a moment where Leo actually opens up to Marsu and talks about himself and his family, without caring much if Marsu really understands him or not. That kind of companionship is just so cute to look at. It's even the first time we see them actually cooperate. Leo tells them not to show up near his house so that his dad doesn't get upset with them, and Marsu actually listens this time and goes back to his place for the night. It's such a nice progression from what we just had not even 8 minutes ago, and it shows their relationship actively developing throughout not just the show as a whole, but each individual episode. It's great. So now, Leo has to get back home, and it's on his way back that he meets the main villain of the show.
Yeah, Backalive here. I've found your son. He's alive.
Let's talk about Backalive. I really like this villain, and the reason why is pretty simple actually. He isn't an idiot. It's so common in shows to have villains be completely incompetent, but this time around, it just isn't the case. His ultimate goal is to have a Marsupilami as a trophy, and the way he tries to achieve that requires him to use all his skills to pull it off. His appearance is striking and intimidating, with his off-putting proportions and scruffy looks tipping us off to who he really is. He doesn't know that Leo has met a Marsupilami yet, but when he hears David mention it, he immediately tries to use it as a way to get to him. He then sees the dynamics of the family and manipulates the father into believing what he's saying about how dangerous a Marsupilami can be. That way, he's making his job a lot easier without the complications the family could create for him. Even though it doesn't quite work out for him, he still manages to convince David to be much stricter on Leo, in hopes that it could give him a lead on Marsu's whereabouts. And it doesn't stop there. Backalive actually spots Leo and Marsu the following morning and waits for the perfect moment to kidnap Marsu's family. He even uses a spray that hides the scent so he doesn't get chased. That's it. Marsu can't do anything about it. In this very moment, Backalive has won. It's so refreshing to see a villain who's an actual threat and manages to succeed thanks to his skills, instead of the entire plot bending over backwards to let it happen. Even when he loses, he doesn't just take a beating without doing anything about it, he still tries to get himself an edge. And that's why I like Backalive so much as a villain. He's simple, but consistent and competent, and that makes him really good. So where does it leave us? Marsu's family has been kidnapped, he can't track them down, and that means all he can do is ask Leo for help. Also, I really like how even though they show that Marsu and Leo are clearly becoming friends, they still don't quite work as a team. Like where Marsu bops him in the face with his tail in anger by accident because he isn't used to having someone around him in situations like these. It's a small and funny detail, and it's definitely worth a mention. So Leo decides to get his family to help him find Marsu's wife and kids.
That Marsipi, that Marsupers, that Marsalami, whatever.
Marsupilami?
That's it. Ah! The Marsupilami!
You can say it.
And it leads us directly into what I would say is one of the show's biggest strengths. How rare is it that in a show like this, I can safely say that each character plays an important role in the story and isn't pushed to the wayside? Because that's exactly what happens in the show, and the first episode is the perfect example of that. We're shown that David can relate to Marsu's struggles as a dad, and he actually uses his skills and knowledge with tech to track down Backalive using the cell network. And when they figure it out, they board Dee Dee's boat, which makes him useful from the get-go thanks to him having the boat in the first place, and also because Dee Dee is willing to help them out. And when Dee Dee shows that he's not confident in making a risky maneuver to catch up to Backalive, that's when Amanda takes over.
Just let me do it, Mr. Dee Dee. You can take Zoe for now, thank you. And here we go!
Marsu doesn't just sit there either. When they get close enough, he hops off the boat to go through the jungle as a shortcut. And that's how he catches up to Backalive and manages to save his family. And then, when Backalive tries to cut his losses and escape, Leo's mom points the boat right at him and rams directly into him. Dude, how much of a badass is she? And that's not the end of it. Marsu's partner, or Mrs. Marsu as she's called later in the show, also demonstrates how important she is through emotional support, working and developing a strong relationship with Amanda later on, and taking action when necessary. Even the baby Marsus, who are named Bibu, Bibi, and Bobo, play important roles in some of the episodes. The only character who doesn't contribute much is Zoe because, well, she's a baby. What do you expect from her? But that doesn't stop her from being the reason why characters like David push themselves beyond what they thought they could do in order to protect her. So she isn't entirely useless either. So far I went over why every character is integral to the story in some way, but I left out 2 of them for a reason. Leo and Marsu are just incredible, and there's no other way to put it. Everything about them makes them feel real and likable, from the way they interact with each other, to their dialogue and behavior. Keep in mind, Leo is 12, and he acts his age perfectly. He gets jealous, he wants attention, he can be really awkward, and sometimes there are things he just can't do yet. Marsu acts in a similar way, and their relationship isn't perfect because of that. There are hardships and misunderstandings between them, and they don't always do the right thing or work together. Their friendship is earned, episode by episode, where they strengthen their bond through overcoming these hardships and helping each other out when in need. They both share that natural curiosity about the things around them, and it feels like they're exploring the world together just like we are as the audience. What makes their relationship so special is the fact that they rely on each other quite often. There are many occasions where Marsu would have failed if not for Leo's quick thinking and perseverance. And there are also moments where without Marsu, Leo wouldn't have gotten very far in his journey. He wouldn't have even started it to begin with. Neither character is stronger than the other. They have their own strengths, and they make up for their weaknesses through working together. It doesn't stop with actually helping each other out either. Both Leo and Marsu provide crucial emotional support that helps them push through their personal problems. Their relationship doesn't just exist because the title of the show says so. It naturally develops and strengthens over time, and it makes for such a satisfying experience seeing them both grow as individuals and become not just inseparable friends, but like brothers to a certain extent. And Leo himself is actually a great role model for many kids out there. He's far from perfect, and like I said earlier, there are some things he just can't do or understand because of his age and inexperience. But it doesn't mean he won't stop trying. His perseverance and desire to improve, no matter what, is inspiring and satisfying to watch. And by the end of the show, you really feel that Leo becomes a completely different person in the best way possible. And Leo, just like his mom, is a total badass. As a 12-year-old, he steps up and puts himself in danger to protect those he loves, or to prove himself. For example, when Dr. attacks him over treasure, he gets up and freaking body slams him. Oh my god!
I'm keeping the treasure since you don't seem to want it anymore. Snake, are you okay? Snake? Snake!
And later on in the show, there's an episode where the Marsu babies need to go through the most dangerous parts of the jungle as part of their initiation into adulthood. They rely on each other's help to get through unharmed. So what does Leo do? He goes in there alone and does all that by himself and succeeds! The only reason he doesn't get to the end is because his mom gets stuck in quicksand and pulls him in with her as he tries to pull her out. And even then, he proves how smart he is by packing a flare, knowing that he might need it if he ends up in danger. All of this would be impressive for an adult alone, but he's a kid, and that makes him that much more special. And letting him succeed like that while keeping his character natural and consistent is a genuine achievement. And you know what's so great about this show? It's not just Leo and Marsu who go through this process of change, and it's not just Leo who gets to have powerful moments like this. They're simply at the center of our attention. As the show progresses, every single character gets their chance to shine and develop, from David to Amanda to even Dee Dee. I don't want to go into spoiler territory, but this show isn't afraid to get real or sometimes even dark. There are some moments of genuine heartbreak, and you can't help but hope for the best for the characters. And the show doesn't sugarcoat these moments either, like when we find out why Didi actively helps out the family and the animals in the jungle, even though there's no personal gain for him in doing it. Or how being separated from someone important in your life can affect you. It takes real courage for a kids show to touch on topics like these, and I'm glad the studio behind it had that courage. I just can't help myself but gush about every little detail that the show included. It's just mind-boggling to me that they managed to do it so effortlessly. I had to rewatch the show for the sake of this video, and I managed to catch so many more details than I did on my first viewing. And when I watched it for a third time with my best friend, she pointed out some details and jokes that completely flew over my head in the first two viewings. Like here, when Leo's dad talks about how he's not going to let Marsu near his house, the head of his broom just pops off and drops to the ground. When our attention is focused elsewhere and there's someone or something in the background, they don't just stand there idly and do nothing. They actually do something, and it's usually reserved for small visual gags. They could have easily looped a simple animation or kept the characters frozen in the background, but that rarely happens, if ever. The animation always seems to go the extra mile to always give us something to look at on multiple viewings. There are so many things that help establish continuity and logical connections between events. Like here, where did Leo's robot go? Well, the next day, we see Marsu's kids playing with that same toy. It even makes for a cute moment where Leo puts the batteries back into it and gives it to the baby Marsu so they can play with it, which builds trust between him and the Marsupilami family. Or here's another one. How did David manage to track Backalive? There, it's shown earlier that Backalive used a cell phone to contact the family. That means Leo's dad actually figured out exactly what to do, instead of making a wild guess. Later on, we see Marsu figuring out that him taking a shortcut will let him get to Backalive faster. How did he know that? Because earlier, Marsu looked at the computer when David explained what's what, and he realized he can catch Backalive earlier by going through the jungle. And these are just examples from the first episode. The whole show is littered with these little details, and they help you connect the dots and go, oh, so that's how they got there, on a fair few occasions. The attention to detail doesn't stop there though. There are some cute references too, like with the name of the sunken ship full of treasure being Santa Pioca. If my friend didn't point it out when we watched the show together, I would have still missed it. It's cute and funny, and it's just one of these little details they didn't really have to put in, and they did anyway. The show is also surprisingly accurate when it brings up real-world information or shows some kind of animal to us. Like here, when Didi says,
"And don't fall in the river, young fella, cause those piranha fish, well, compared to them sharks, is like goldfish."
He's not kidding, as the piranha bite is the strongest in the animal kingdom. So it really does put Leo's reaction to the bite into perspective in that scene now, doesn't it? Or here, when the show introduces dolphins of all things, that made me go, no way. There's no way, I gotta look that up, there's no way. And guess what? There they are! And I didn't even have to look past the second or third picture to find the exact silhouette I was looking for. It's the details like these that just show you how much effort the studio behind this series put into every single frame. And I appreciate stuff like this so much. And now, after I said all that, does it really surprise you just how much I love this show? In just 26 episodes, My Friend Marsupilami manages to tell a great and satisfying story. It has an interesting setting, great characters, amazing writing, and incredible animation and attention to detail. I love this show unconditionally. I love the sibling dynamic between Marsu and Leo. I love how each character is distinct and plays an important role in the narrative. I love how everyone changes and grows as the show progresses. I love how funny the show is, and I love how everything in this story is logically connected and explained in a way that feels perfectly plausible. I love how the main villain of the show is an actual threat and not a complete buffoon. And I love how even he gets his own development without it feeling forced or not earned at all. It does everything perfectly, and then it pushes above and beyond to deliver something special. Wow, what an amazing show! With so many things going for it, I wonder if it got the recognition it deserved. Yeah, so needless to say, the thumbnail wasn't clickbait at all. My Friend Marsupilami managed to fly completely under the radar for seemingly everyone. No matter where I look, I never see any discussion of the show, and Marsupilami as a whole has kind of fallen by the wayside, becoming yet another obscure and niche European character. After this series, all we got was a movie that was so bad, it's better I don't actually show you any of the footage from it. Trust me, it's for the better, just take my word for it. We also got a new animated series in 2009 named Hubba Hubba Hop, and while it's certainly better than the movie, because it doesn't give me nightmares when I go to sleep, it's still just painful to watch. It has none of the clever writing or consistency or charm the original had. The animation isn't exactly bad, but it looks really rough in places and clearly doesn't compare to what we had back in 2003. And what's even more upsetting is that the playlist with My Friend Marsupilami have the description that was taken from the 2009 show. I mean, come on, really? You're gonna take this gem and insult it by lazily copy-pasting the description from an entirely different and subpar show? Really? It just feels like a spit in the face of what the show accomplished. He wasn't given more of a chance to shine on TV when he was at his peak, and now it seems that everyone pretends as if the show never even existed, or that it was nothing more than a second season to what there was before. And the mediocre and downright awful media that came after completely stopped any and all momentum that Marsu had at the time. All the potential that Marsupilami, the characters, the Colombian jungle held was just completely wasted. And this level of mistreatment is nothing short of infuriating. In the end, it's just a real shame. But it's not all hopeless for Marsu. He's actually been on a positive trend over the past decade. In 2012, the same studio that made the 2009 show decided to try again and released its spiritual successor named Our Neighbors the Marsupilamis. I could only find the first 2 episodes, and I'm not really sure if they're actually in any exact order. But I watched both of these episodes and I have to say, I liked them. The animation and the character designs got a huge facelift. The new human family is pretty great, and each of the family members has their own distinct personality. I like the interactions they have with Marsu, and even though I feel like him and his family were completely reset from how they were in 2003 or even back in the year 2000, I could tell that it's a really good show. It's not great like My Friend Marsupilami is, but it's good enough for me to enjoy myself while watching it and not trying to rip my hair out.
Okay, we're not out of the woods yet.
And then, in 2021, after a long drought, Acella's studio came out with Marsupilami Hub Adventure. It's a simple but fun platformer game, and it's actually how I got to rediscover my favorite childhood character. I can't recommend it enough, it's a blast to play. And finally, we have the recent announcement of a show titled The Marsupilamis, which is being worked on by Ellipse Animation. The only things we know about it is that it's set to release in 2025 and it's going to feature a complete overhaul for Bibu, Bibi, and Bobo, who are now named Twister, Hope, and Punch respectively. The show will also feature human twins as our main characters, and the studio promised that they will first and foremost put a focus on the relationships between the characters. They also released this teaser render and it looks fantastic! It's vibrant, the art style and character designs are so great! This render really gives me hope for what's to come, and I really wish the best for the studio. Maybe this show will strike gold and finally give Marsu the boost he now desperately needs. But for now, we're left with this. My Friend Marsupilami is nothing short of a gem. It nails everything that makes for a great show and goes above and beyond to make itself truly stand out as something special. And at the moment, this show still remains almost completely unappreciated, and I just can't let it stay like this. With this video, I want to fix this injustice and finally get Marsu the spotlight he truly deserves. So I encourage you to watch the show when you get the chance to. Download it to your hard drive, show it to your kids. Set up movie nights to watch it with your friends. Talk about it. All of these things will help out immensely, so why not give it a try? The positive feedback can also help Ellipse Studios and MediaToon see just how much people love this cute little fella. Maybe it'll even be enough for them to give My Friend Marsupilami a faithful remaster to bring him to modern aspect ratios and streaming services. Though, personally, I wouldn't change a single thing about it. Just give us this show in HD and I'll be more than happy to watch it again. In the description, I put the link to the full playlist of the show with every episode in chronological order. So please, do yourselves a favor and check it out. It's definitely worth your time. And now, after everything I've talked about, all I can say is this. Thank you Marathon Animation for making this wonderful show. And to you Marsu, thank you so much for being a big part of my childhood back in the day. Even now, you've managed to play an important role in my life. It's thanks to you that I have rediscovered my true self and finally decided to pursue my passions after years of feeling rather aimless and empty. So, thank you, Marsu, for everything. And I wish you to have a bright future ahead.